I've been here for about 2.5 years.
His first weekend was when I came in.
Yeah. So I'm a scoliosis surgeon. That's my main focus. And if we have time, I'll tell you the story. So I was, about to take my first call, prepared, for everything. And then one of the resident trainees was like skipping down the hallway. He was like, "Hey, Dr. Godzik, I'm just going down to the ED to go see Christy." And she's like, "I think she has, AOD," which is again the acronym for this thing. And I was kind of like, I'm gonna go to my office and probably go home. Like a resident trainee who thinks they have AOD, there's no, you either do or don't have it. It's like saying oh, I think aliens have landed. Like they have or haven't. It's like a binary thing. And I was like, yeah. And then they texted the chief resident. So it's like a upward. The chief resident calls me with a picture, and I'm like, oh, the car, ABS, pulling over from the, going that way towards Homewood. I did a UE, and I was like, I gotta go examine her again. Are you sure, Christy's alive? And
Fortunately for me, I was in fact still alive, but I've included chapter markers in this video, but I recently did a collaboration with my neurosurgeon, Dr. Godzik, presenting to the Neurosurgery Leadership Council what Dr. Godzik calls the 3 pillars of neurosurgery. Dr. Godzik is diligent about bringing the latest in technological advances here to UAB. He also has a passion for teaching, but I, of course, just run my mouth.
Hi again. They weren't able to get rid of me, so I'm still here. I'm going to talk a little bit about just kind of a theme, I guess, that I put together. And then this is Christy Bullock over here. And she's one of our patients, and she's going to talk a little bit about what I think is super crucial, important for us to remember as physicians. And so welcome, everybody. I'm a very informal presenter, so if you guys have questions or anything like that, just feel free to raise your hand, and I'm happy to answer any questions. So my name is Jakub Godzik. I'm one of the spine surgeons here. And I wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, today about some of the stuff that I do, but kind of put it in perspective of, I think, the big picture, the way that I think about my job and my career. And so kind of the topic is 3 things. The first is technology, which I think is really, really important for what we do in medicine, but especially in neurosurgery. The second thing is education, which is very near and dear to my heart. And the third one that I think is the glue that holds the whole, surgeon, physician together is the human connection, which is very cliche, I know, but it's really, really easy to lose, and it's really important for us to remember moving forward. So I think for me, those are the pillars of neurosurgery. That's the foundation of what I do. And I guess to give you a sense of why I am the way that I am and who I am is to start obviously with my family and where I'm from. So I'm originally from Poland. I was born there. My family's lived there since 1300 in the local church where they're from. And that's my grandfather on the left. He was a very avid hiker in our version of the Alps. And then that's my grandmother over there. And they met rock climbing, and they were both very avid outdoors people. They support each other. They were very passionate about education. So my grandfather lectured until he was he was forced to retire by the government because it was elder abuse at the age of 80. She unfortunately passed, but she ran the equivalent of their CDC for 25 years. She was the first woman to do that. She was also the first woman to finish biochemistry at the University in Krakow. And so, as you can tell, that obviously had a big impact on who we are as a family. And so that's my grandfather on the left. That's my dad, Adam, who was also a scientist. He had a PhD in quantum mechanics, which I can't even pronounce, but he wanted to really do something to do with people and health. So we came to the United States. That's me taking my first little walk in Warsaw. It was color back then, but obviously only black and white photos. And he moved to the States because he basically answered a newspaper advertisement that was like, hey, do you do, quantum computing, hardcore math, but do you actually want to like help people? So he became a cancer researcher. We moved to Southern California, and that's why I have a Southern California accent. So I think, just to go back to the 3 pillars, I think that technology is essential for what we do. I think that education is absolutely essential for the UAB mission and the way that I think about my job, but also I think the human connection is critically important. And so I was going to start out with the technology aspect of what I do, and just to give you a sense of, I guess, my job and kind of like what I do is I basically turn the left image into the right image. So this is scoliosis surgery, deformity operation, kind of complex spine surgery. But really what it's about is, if you boil it down, is the simplest thing what we do is putting screws in the right place. And they're very big screws into a very, very tiny space. Sometimes it's about 3 or 4 millimeters. And to the left, you have the aorta, and to the right, you have the spinal cord. So it's not a lot of tolerance for error. And so I've been a big proponent of something that actually comes out of business, which is something called enabling technology. So specifically, what we're going to talk about today is robotics. But robotics is only one aspect of that, which basically means is it provides a way for the user, me, to have a giant leap forward in terms of their skill set with an aspect of technology. So that's really what the robot is. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And to give you a sense, again, I know there's a little glare, but the yellow thing is a screw, and the white is a spine. And here, you can't really see that. Here what we're doing is we're basically trying to plan, this is from an old research paper, we're trying to get this screw right here. So this is the aorta here, and that's the spinal canal, trying to avoid both of those things. And you're trying to go in and plan it. So this is a plan screw that we did, and then using the robot that now has been sold to a big industry partner. It was actually developed in the basement where I trained. We're able to place that screw exactly. So this is a post-operative CT scan that shows you that the screw went exactly as it was planned, which sounds very easy and simple, but it's a huge deal for patients around the country and the world, and it's also a huge industry. And so this is the original planning software. So now this is what we do when we plan surgeries. We can actually plan ahead. You come in and you have a personalized plan of where we're going to place these things. And then that aspect of surgery becomes semi-automated with the robot, which I'll show you in a second, is a video of me placing a screw. And so here you have me, you have a scrub technician, that's an x-ray machine, and that is not a great picture. That's the robotic arm that basically positions itself so that we can place the screw through a very small incision in the skin into where it needs to go. And so it's very hard to see, very percutaneous. Our initial hope was that we'd be able to demonstrate some of that today for you guys in the operating room, but I think if we do that, that's going to be another time in the future. It's a little too complicated. And so when I came here, we acquired this piece of machinery, which is very challenging to implement into the workflow. So it's taken us about 2 years to really get it working. We are now 30 surgeries in, successful, about 120 screws placed, all very accurately. And so in a very, not new to us, not new to the country, but new to us, new to Birmingham, new to Alabama, is that we've noticed that we've significantly been able to cut down on the amount of skin manipulation that we're doing, which means less injury to someone's back. It's much safer. The screws are being placed very accurately. And we've also noticed that this leads to much faster recovery for our patients. And so I think, this is a very exciting technology, and the way that I view it is there's a tremendous change going on in medicine with artificial intelligence, with all these new fancy terms. The way that I view it is kind of like the Tesla self-driving car. These are all only small elements that need to be combined into a big picture to deliver on better healthcare. And I think this is absolutely the future of healthcare. And so very happy to be able to at least started our robotics adventure here. There's a lot more to be built off of. So there's a lot more research and development that can happen in terms of new applications for the robot and uses in the operating room. I always like to stop and talk a little bit about myself. So the apple didn't fall far from the tree. That's me and my beautiful wife. This is in the Alps. We're doing something called the Via Ferrata. So we're doing an assisted ascent. She's very happy. At the moment this picture was taken, she wasn't very happy with me. And that's her here at Birmingham. We keep training. So that's actually down to 280. There's a big indoor gym, and she's killing it on the climb there. So,
A question?
yes, ma'am.
Will you tell how the machine was developed, where it was developed?
Yes. So it was developed in the biomechanics lab in St. Joseph's Hospital, Barrow Neurological Institute, where I trained. And I worked in the biomechanics lab while they already had the intellectual property for it. And it was basically developed as an extension of navigation system. So it's not really a robot, it's actually technically a cobot. You have to see it, I think, to make sense. So unfortunately, because it's in the OR, we can't bring it here to show you. But it was basically developed with the intent of improving the accuracy of surgery, but to reduce the stress and cognitive load of the physician so that they can focus and attention on other things, the next step. To me, it's all kind of ladders. So the screws are the easiest. Next thing. So for me, I don't know if that answers your question, but for me, now screw placement in certain applications is basically, that's really easy and really fun. I can focus my attention and energy and concern for the really critical part.
And who bought it?
So it was sold to Globus, which is a company out of Philadelphia. It's like the top 3 spine group, and it's been very successful and very lucrative. But it's built as a modular system. So we were able to alpha test it when it was being launched, and helped with some of the code development, make it better. And it's modular, so screw placement is only the first module. The second module is to start doing actual surgery, which is now in FDA. So basically the idea is that eventually the robot might be able to assist in surgery, but it's nothing like the Da Vinci robot that is in urological surgery. This is more a cobot than a robot. I don't know if that makes a big difference. So bottom line is it's extremely rudimentary compared to the existing robotic systems. And so there's enormous potential for research and development application.
You said the only one in Alabama is here?
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. There are other robotic systems, but frankly, I think they're extremely inferior, and they don't have that modular build. And it was built by a surgeon for surgery, not by production engineers in Israel who built it for something else. Those are really good. But they were not built in mind with the end goal, which is actually a common theme for me. I think that innovation by surgeons for surgeons is always inherently advantageous versus someone coming in and giving a product, because it just lacks that depth of vision. But that's a great question. Any other thoughts, questions? At some point, if you guys are interested, we'd love to have you come in the OR and actually put in screws into a plastic cadaver. But maybe see a case if anyone's interested. It's I don't know if we have enough time, but every resident and trainee, maybe Dr. Park can speak to this, is really excited to see the robot. But then they see a case, they do a case with me, and I can see the look of disappointment on their face because it's not as cool and sexy as you would think, but also they look at it and they recognize that part of surgery will soon be replaced by a robot, right? That's the realization that's setting in. That's, I think, with the look of disappointment. And that's a whole separate conversation. I don't think that's the case, but I see this play out now on like multiple people's faces, and then they don't want to do surgery with the robot anymore. So, but it's a really neat technology. So hopefully you guys can see it one day. So this kind of dovetails into the education part, which, like I said, I come from a long family of educators and university professors. I don't know, it's just in the genes, I guess. I enjoy it a lot. It's really rewarding, but there are challenges. So some of the challenges that each generation is different, right? Every generation likes to complain about the younger generation. But every generation is different. They learn differently. And, you know, what was allowed 10 years ago is not allowed anymore. So if you guys were getting onto a flight, onto a Delta flight, flying somewhere, and you saw this face in the pilot seat, you'd probably be really nervous, right? And so I think about that the same way is how can we train future surgeons, right? We need to train the future. That's kind of what I feel like my calling is to educate the future and to continue to provide good surgery, you know, when I'm gone. But how do you do that safely, right? How do you navigate when to let the resident trainee do something but not put the patient at risk? And that is a very challenging balance. That's a whole separate conversation. And that is partially why I was very interested in virtual reality, and I have been since like 2015. Actually, even right when I started residency is why use virtual reality? How do we use technology to fill that gap in what we can, you know, need to teach our residents to do? And there's technical skills that they need to do, there's knowledge that they need to do, and I personally wouldn't want to be the first patient that a resident gets to do something on, right? So this is not new. This exists in other fields. It's particularly really well known in aviation. So they have these semi-virtual cockpits that they need to put in like 200 hours before they're even allowed into an airplane. The military is actually very big on this, and so I've spent a lot of time in Huntsville talking with military contractors in terms of how they teach, you know, Apache pilots and all that kind of stuff. And so my thought was, years ago, is be great if someone practiced landing this jumbo jet before they practiced it on a jumbo jet full of people. And so we actually, this slide I put in here because I think you guys might appreciate it. This is the exact same slide that I pitched to this group of women, but in Phoenix in 2015. And we were able to fundraise a lot of money to start the lab and to start this process. So this is something that was born out of actually philanthropy in Phoenix, is to build a virtual reality platform that is basically freely available to the rest of the world to have a representation of the operating room of a patient, give them instant feedback, give them appropriate anatomy to learn, and have actual procedures that they're doing, right? Because it's different when you're walking through something, you're not really doing anything, you're just kind of looking at things, you're not going to pick that up, your brain's not going to learn anything. So here's a video, hopefully kind of shows you a little bit what we're talking about. So this is a very early version of this. That's a human spine that we imported into a very simple, you know, virtual operating room, gave different tools that are, again, that are necessary for placing instrumentation, and have them actually practice doing this in virtual reality and have feedback. So this is a very early setup, and if you guys want to try it out later, Matt Parr's here, and we actually have this set up here with the new app loaded that I'll talk to you a little bit. That has been very useful in terms of, you know, teaching our residents. And so these pictures are actually, we launched this during COVID because there were no surgeries being done and the residents were not learning what they needed to learn. So we kind of accelerated it, sent it home with several residents, which actually has never been done ever in any sort of field, not just medicine. It's never been done before. And so Dr. Parr is actually writing up, the way we communicate these things is we write papers. So he's writing up, and this is a very rough breakdown of basically surveys of the residents, but pretty much everybody said that it should be offered routinely, that they believe that can improve outcomes in the operating room. So it's a transferable skill. It can teach them technical skills, and as a result, they're more comfortable doing this procedure after doing it at home in the comfort of their own house without me breathing down their neck before they get to do it in the operating room. So there's some data, but I'm not going to really go into the data. Basically shows that over time they got better and better. So when I came here, we expanded the lab that we had founded in Phoenix to here. So this is a group of researchers from the Phoenix group with Matt Parr, bottom left. He hasn't really changed much. That's Nick Laskay right there. He's driving. Caught him in an awkward moment. To actually bring it here to Alabama. And what we've done now, we've finished that study. We're going to try to publish it. It's been very successful. And it's also been the foundation for virtual reality education efforts at UAB. So now other groups like radiology, general surgery are actually trying to replicate this exact format to do it at UAB. And I think we're uniquely positioned to be very successful. So we have a little bit of funding from the health group, the physicians group. This is actually not very expensive, but it is incredibly helpful to buy supplies and stuff like that. And the way that I say it is, the anatomical learning that you guys saw here, and I really do encourage you to try, especially if you're wanting to do some surgery in virtual reality. Anatomy is just the beginning. It's so much more that can be done, and the military is really good about this. Like, this is how they train all their elite operators, is initially with virtual reality, or things like, always refer to this thing called cognitive load, skills, stress inoculation. Those are critical things for a physician that take time to learn. And so if you can do that at home, you can accelerate the learning, and we can potentially have better and better surgeons being produced. And the second thing that we started doing with virtual reality that's been a big hit is basically previewing complex surgery beforehand. So the scoliosis surgery that I showed you earlier is an inherently three-dimensional problem, and it's very complicated. And even I'm early in my career, so I cross every T, dot every I, make sure that everything is perfect. So I actually will render the patient's anatomy in virtual reality and review it beforehand, before surgery, the day before, 2 days before. What we started doing is doing it with the with the resident trainees. This is Dr. Parr doing that before a case, and it's very, very basic. And here's a video of that. It's hard to see, so apologize for the glare. But basically, what we're doing here is I'm walking through a complex revision surgery the next day. This is old instrumentation. The patient has developed scoliosis below that, so we're needing to extend everything. But by navigating this in virtual reality and then narrating it for the team, what we're able to actually do is improve group understanding. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the logistics of how an operating room runs, but it's basically you don't know who you're going to get that day. It's not always the same team member. They know you, but they may not know the details of the operation. And so this also actually comes from the military, which is called like a shared mental model. So when you do something with a group of people that you've already done with, maybe like this group, you already know what you're getting into. You know what to expect. You know what the day is going to look like. Well, in surgery, that's not always the case. You think it is, but it's not. And so this is an ability for an opportunity for us to leverage technology to create that, to make and provide better outcomes. And what we preliminarily did is we surveyed our staff in the OR, our residents. Do they like this video? Do they like reviewing this? And it was an overwhelmingly positive response. They really liked it. They had a better understanding of what was going on. They understood the patients, which we'll kind of get to in a second. And they had a very, very good, response. They really liked it. They want more of it. And so we're hoping to launch this as well moving forward. And the vision is, and has always been for the last 5 years, is to create this kind of multi-institutional collaboration. You can't do this one-off. You can't do this in one spot. I would very much like UAB to be in the center of this. We have other major players like University of Pennsylvania, Duke, Thomas Jefferson, and they're looking to us for guidance and looking to us to be able to take this to the next level, which I think is very doable, because this next slide is a little overwhelming. And don't even need to look at any of the details, but all of this technology interplays, okay? So there's things on there like artificial intelligence, augmented reality. Don't worry about the acronyms. The concept is, how do we use technology to train better, to get better outcomes, and to have a better, basically offer better surgery and better outcomes to our patients. And I'm going to stop there to introduce my family. This is what I call the pierogi factory. So this is them over Christmas. I put them to work like any good manager. I'm just taking photos and so this is our kitchen, and then these are the main players. This is my dad from left to right. We call him the dough man, okay? He's putting the pierogi dough together, which is very, very important. Then you got the roller, which is my beautiful wife. She's rolling the dough out, so it's just perfect. My brother, my little brother, he's a genius in the family. We call him Beef because he makes the beef and he puts it into the pierogi. My mom, the big pinch, she pinches the pierogi in just the right way. And then my amazing mother-in-law, who then arranges it and is called the arranger, she puts it in the fridge, and now we have hundreds of pierogi ready for the rest of the year. Now to transition to, again, what I kind of say I think is a little cliche, but I think is actually the most important part and crucial part, is to not lose track of why we're doing all of this. So that overwhelming slide with all the arrows, that was from a kind of like a US Senate vision of where this is going to go. And nowhere in that slide was there a patient. There was no, like, it's really easy to get carried away in all these machines and these technology and all these things. And it's really easy to lose track of this. So when I was thinking about what I'm going to talk to you guys about, reflecting on it, I think this is the part that drives me, this is the part that motivates me, and this is the hardest part to stay true to. So I try to emphasize that to the residents, and that's why we asked Christy to come here today to share a little bit of her experience and to talk to us about what it's like to be a patient. And she's an amazing woman, so I don't know, Christy, you want to come up here and
Sure.
talk a little bit? And we never know what Christy's going to say, so I'm very excited. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Okay, we'll start there. Hi. I am not a public speaker, so I just have to pretend like I already know you and we're friends, and I talk to you like we're friends sitting down for coffee. And I was told if I did not start with this that they would be very disappointed. So, y'all are not medical people, but nurses, interns, anytime they have a big trauma, part of their assessment is they have to examine you rectally. And also as an ICU patient, it was a common thing. And my first event I spoke at was the Trauma Survivors Network event in last May. And it was full of doctors and nurses. And I was like, well, I was really nervous to come here today, but then I looked around this room and realized that there's at least 5 people in here that have had their finger in my butthole. And, and now I feel better. So I was a paramedic for over 10 years. My husband Lee's a paramedic also. And we rode motorcycles for many years. Long story short, Lee was away on a camping trip and I went riding with my dad. Don't know what happened, have no idea. I have theories, but anyways, I didn't make a curve. And I was going around a sharp left curve, and for some reason the bike just wouldn't do it, and I hit a guardrail. And when I hit the guardrail, I had on a big helmet. So the guardrail stopped me, but my head kept going like that, which is this picture here. The C1 up the base of the skull that curves, and then that part just under it, and the one down, that's all supposed to be together. So that injury is called an Atlanto-occipital dislocation, layman's terms, internally decapitated. It's the same injury that killed Dale Earnhardt. Not many people survive that. Dr. Godzik told me that when he saw my scans, he sent the resident in to go check to see if I was still alive, and then like, no, go check again, because according to him, this is the worst he's ever seen. It's almost always instantly fatal. The ones that do live are not well off. So I have a little bit of, I struggle sometimes with, now I started a YouTube channel. That's why I'm wearing my microphone to talk about it. And that's one of the hardest things about talking about it is because I get a lot of people that say, you know, my husband died in a motorcycle wreck, or my child was in a car wreck and now they're paralyzed. And so on the one hand, I'm so grateful. I don't take any day for granted, but on the other hand, it's hard when you see so many people that lost loved ones, so that's a whole other conversation. But so I was in the hospital here for 3 months, and then I'm 2 years out now, and I feel like within the last 6 months, I'm feeling more like a person again. But what I think Dr. Godzik is trying to convey with a human connection, it was hard to be completely functional and independent and capable. I was really good at my job. And then now you're the patient, and in some ways it's hard because I was the patient care provider and now I'm the patient. I was wearing a diaper. I was in that halo for, let's see, I was like this for a very long time. I was in that halo for what, 6-8 weeks, something like that.
3 months. Yep. A long time. Very long time.
I'm sure you can tell by that, but like you can't, if I had an itch, I couldn't scratch it. I couldn't communicate, I couldn't talk. In fact, I remember Dr. Godzik coming in, and Lee has told me, for some reason I was able to like write on his hand and he could understand, and I was probably very aggressive about it too. But when you're like this for so long and you can't do anything for yourself, you can't communicate, the mental part is often, I wouldn't say it's not talked about, but I don't think it's nearly talked about as much as, you know, a physical recovery, but the mental aspect of this cannot be understated. And I've been told for so long, you have such a good attitude, because I'm always cracking jokes or what I call this my other butthole. But you know, you have a good attitude and whatever, but I'm able to have a good attitude because number one, my husband was just freaking amazing, but my nurses, Stacy, she was the main one, but they saw that they could tell that I was really struggling. And well, I kind of got ahead of myself. So in the hospital like this, Dr. Godzik did a surgery, and I've got all that hardware he showed with the scoliosis. I've got that now connects my head to my spine, basically. So that's why I can't turn my neck very far. But after that, he got us through that, and we all were told and thought things were gonna get better. Well, I had a complication that nobody could have seen coming, because nobody has survived an injury like that. And what happened was, because and correct me if I say something wrong, the injury was so bad that it kind of shifted my brain a little bit. And so that fluid that you have in your brain, it couldn't exit the way it's supposed to, so it just accumulated. And I had a delayed onset of hydrocephalus, which is too much fluid in the brain. And when there's too much fluid in the brain and the brain has nowhere to go, it goes down. It herniates and you die immediately. Well, I don't know about immediately, but they die very quickly. Lee was in the room when it happened. I had been complaining of a headache, and I mean, who in neuro ICU does not have a headache? So, you know, but then I stopped breathing. I blew both my pupils, didn't have a gag reflex, which my brain started herniating. So they couldn't I had already had the breathing tube out, but they couldn't get it back in because of the halo and everything. So they had to do this at bedside. And then they drilled into my skull at bedside to put a drain in. And then they took me to the OR to, you know, pretty it up, I guess, or put the finishing touches on it. But so that was that part was the most traumatic part for me, because I did my sedation wore off during some of that. So I kind of was awake and feeling and hearing and smelling, and I couldn't tell anybody. I couldn't communicate that, like, I'm here. But also, when you're a patient like this, especially, you know, neurosurgeons are so specialized and they're so focused on, you know, keeping you alive, that as a patient, it's very easy to feel like a sack of meat, that people just, they come in and they do things and then they leave, and you're like, hello, I'm still here, I'm still me, even though I look like this. But so anyways, the nurses saw me struggling a lot, especially after that setback was very difficult. So I survived the initial injury, which I shouldn't have, and then I survived the herniation, which I shouldn't have, and was really struggling. I was missing my kids. I was just mentally not doing well. I wanted to die. I desperately wanted to die at that point. So Stacy told me, she said, I tell you what, if you get off this ventilator, we're gonna take you up to the roof and we're gonna watch the sunset. And so that's what they did. When I got off the ventilator, they spent, an hour and a half packaging. Put me in a chair and we went to the roof to see the sunset. And I'm ugly crying, of course. But my favorite, this is what I pointed out at the Survivors Network, which we didn't have pictures. My favorite thing about these pictures, this is Stacy, by the way, but the way she is looking at me, and this right here, that right there, that one little thing, I trusted her implicitly. That woman hung the moon in my eyes. So did Dr. Godzik. But that's the human side. That her recognizing, her having humanity and compassion and just putting in the extra effort to kind of make me want to live again. So that was written by, I think her name's Emma. There was an article written by Emma here. When me and Lee were sitting at home one day and my phone started blowing up, The Good Doctor on ABC, they put that in their season finale. Of course, they didn't tell me. I didn't know anything about it. But the pictures, they recreated this scene, and like the pictures are identical. They referenced a woman in Alabama, internal decapitation, and then they took their patient up to the roof, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, they used your story. I'm like, no, they didn't. Well, they did. I think, let's see, and then I finally got out after 3 months, you know, long recovery, all that, multiple surgeries. That was not my only injury. So I had internal decapitation. I tore both my carotid, both vertebral arteries, I believe, lots of contusions on my lungs. I had aspirated blood and vomit, my liver lacerated, spleen. I broke my back in 3 places. This leg is very sexy now. So it was just multi-organ, multi-system trauma. And obviously I can't go back to work to be a paramedic anymore, but for an outlet, because I got tired, not tired, but I would get asked the same questions over and over and over and over again. So I thought, if I just turn the camera on and I just tell this story and put it on YouTube, when somebody wants to know what happened to me, they can just watch the video. And so that was my only intent with that. And I put that on YouTube, having no idea what I was doing. And that video now has got on YouTube about, I don't know, like 600,000 views now. So it launched my channel. I did a small TikTok. It's at like 1.3 million views right now, just kind of running through some of this stuff. And so many people were interested in it. So me and Lee sat down and we kind of told the story from our perspective, from his perspective, and we started making connections with people and families. And so now I run my mouth on YouTube. Well, my name is hard to say, but I'm short and I'm a mom and I was a paramedic, so my name is LittleTraumaMama. And sometimes I get like, I don't want to call it fan mail, but like people write me letters and stuff and they call me Mama, and it's sweet. But Dr. Godzik through all of this has, especially with Lee, he was very, you can tell that he practices what he preaches with the human connection with my entire family. He came to see me on Thanksgiving Day wearing street clothes just to see how we were doing. He's also been pivotal in, you know, anytime I have a question, because I'm the type of person, I have to know every little detail. Like if there's drama at work, I'm like, tell me everything. And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, so like Dr. Godzik has been really good about, because for me, having details helps me process it. And once I understand it, then I can kind of put it down and move on. So he definitely practices what he preaches. He found out about my YouTube channel and has volunteered himself, and I'm saying it out here, so you have to do it. He and his wife are talking about coming to our house and sitting down and filming it, because I do podcasts too with like I've done one with a dispatcher and another paramedic, and so I like to talk about different things. So we're gonna come to a podcast, which I think will be phenomenal, because I mean, who gets to sit down and talk with their neurosurgeon, you know? So I'll cook you some salmon though. But
I'm practicing my TikTok dance, so.
And he did say, I don't remember this, but they've both said it. When I was in ICU, he told me, a year from now, I want to see you on the beach drinking a Mai Tai. And so on the 1-year anniversary, we went to the beach and had a Mai Tai, and Dr. Godzik lost his cup, but he does have our picture, so.
How long after your accident? Picture on the left.
The left, let's see, my exit was in October, so that would have been, I think, in like February or March probably, because I came home the end of December. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at my phone, but, well, no, because I was standing up there. That was the other thing. I think the first time I saw him, I was still in a wheelchair, baby, and I was like, I am walking. I drove him crazy because he wanted to take my wheelchair, and I was like, no, I am walking, and that's a long walk from the parking deck to his office, but I did it. I walked in there, and we lived happily ever after. But as a former care provider myself, although nothing near a neurosurgeon, it is, you see so many bad things and the outcomes aren't always good, especially in neurosurgery. They have so many just bad outcomes. But like I told the nurses and everybody at the Trauma Day Survivors event, you know that they get abused, they don't get paid enough, they get abused, there's so much, what's the word, like, I call them pencil pushers, what's the policies and stuff, that people are writing policies are not giving care at bedside, so it's all a bunch of numbers, and it's just another injury, it's another patient to treat, you do what you gotta do, and you move on, and you go home. But these are people on the other end of that. And for me now as a patient, the things that they did for me changed my life, not only physically, but the way that I was treated, the way that I was supported has been so pivotal in why I have a good attitude, because I have the support and I also have the freedom. Sometimes we all just need to be a toddler and we need to pitch a fit. And they let me do that when I needed to. And so, yeah, that's pretty much my story. What? 17 and 18 now. They were 15 and 16 then. So they saw me, it wasn't for a while before they finally got to see me, but that was another thing. I started breaking down a lot because I couldn't see my kids, and so they finally broke rules during COVID so that I could see my kids. Yeah.
What's the name of your podcast?
It's all just under LittleTraumaMama on YouTube.
Oh, okay, and then it links.
But
Okay.
I have like different playlists. So like, now look, if you watch my videos, I run my mouth and I give my opinions and I use profanity. but not on the podcast where we're talking about that. I'm professional. Just not on the other stuff. I mean, I was a paramedic, so
Yeah.
kind of like the military.
Were you airlifted here?
Yes. In fact, so I wrecked in the county that I worked in, and so it was my coworkers that ran the call. Fortunately, I don't remember. They said I was conscious. I remember it a little bit. I remember like laying on the road and looking up, and like I knew that I was hurt, and I was telling my dad was freaking out, and apparently I was bossing them even then because I was like, get a helicopter. I need a helicopter. I didn't know what was going on. I just knew it was bad. But fortunately, I don't remember the pain. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember. I knew I was about to wreck, and I thought this is going to hurt, and lights out. So I'm glad I don't have that memory. But the hydrocephalus thing, that was, unfortunately, I do have memories of that. But them being so good about answering my questions about it, and sometimes I ask repetitive questions, but it's just, it does help to kind of process everything. So.
Both of you.
Yeah.
You need to be up there as well.
Yes, when it comes to like, and it took me a long time too, because when your loved one is there every day, unfortunately they become like a piece of furniture because they're there every day, and you not take it for granted, but I sometimes would forget just how hard this was on him, and we talk about it often that I don't know that what he went through was not harder than what I went through, and very, very fortunate. But yes, he should definitely give speeches on, or he could definitely be beneficial to family members. I can talk about the patient side, but what he went through too, his role, he changed my diapers. He would hold me while I was crying while they were changing, because I couldn't do anything, and it was humiliating. It was terrible. And then after I got home from the hospital, his mother, who lived with us, started declining, and then we cared for her before she died, and I would change her diapers, and she would say, "Oh, Christy, you have no idea how humiliating." I was like, I do, Marie. And that experience helped me really care for her and give her dignity, because I did. I knew exactly how she felt, and it was awful, but all we can do is do the best with what we have and do better, and I definitely don't take anything for granted anymore. The perspective, he's even talked about my personality changes. I feel like I aged. Yeah, I don't get stressed out about anything anymore. I'm like, on our last camping trip on the way to Florida, we blew all 4 tires, not at one time, all at different times. All 4 tires, and we were laughing. He was like, you know what? We're not in ICU right now, and I'm like, amen. So.
Thank you. I can't look up. Yeah, so thank you, Christy, for everything, and thanks for telling your story, and for everybody for listening. It's not like, it doesn't really apply to the technology. It doesn't really apply to the education, the VR at all. But I think that's the most important stuff. And Christy survived something that I actually, I go to a lot of courses and meetings nationally, and I put that up, to pull the audience and like figure out what I should do next. And am I being recorded? Mm-hmm. All right. All the old farts were like, that person's not alive. Like, nobody believed that they would be alive. And then some people were like, I don't know, like, how, are they even, like, are they vegetative? Like, what? And I was like, no. Like, and nobody had ever seen the complication that happened. And so, it shows you, I think, that the other side is also human and sees things that they've never seen before, or dealing with other, their own emotions of insecurity. Did I do something wrong in the surgery? Could we have prevented this? Is this the right thing? But, you get through it together, and what you went through was what's much, much greater, but, there's humans on both sides. And I think that's really important to remember.
Well, I couldn't imagine the pressure that you felt too. That's
Yeah, I just wanted you to do well, and you did, I think.
How long did the surgery take?
Yeah, it's 3 hours, 2 hours. I mean, for what we do, it's not a lot. That's the thing is, not to downplay the surgery that we do, but that's actually the easiest part. The recovery, the other stuff, that we're not trained for, we're not good at, and I think, not to get on my soapbox, but here I am. With the advent of artificial intelligence, and I think it's a discussion we should have, because I think our society, our world's about to change, and it's already changing. We just don't know it. But I think that's the part that will never be replaced. The EQ, the ability to communicate one human to another, and I think that part, everything else can be replaced. A robot can do what I do. A technician could eventually do what I do, but it's the other part, it's the human element that I think is really hard to navigate, and that is hard to replace and hard to teach. And that's why I think we're so selective about who we recruit to be training here, why we take such pride, in training them, and really want to do a good job. The other comment I was going to say is this picture. I do have the cup. I didn't lose it.
Oh, you told me you lost it.
No. I found it.
Oh, okay.
But this picture they actually framed for me, which is really, really sweet. They framed this picture and gave it to me, and I was recently studying for my board exam, which I don't know if many of you know. It's a rite of passage, and you got to learn back to geometry and angles, and you got to learn everything. And I was like, it's brutal. But I had, not to be cliche, I had the picture of Christy and Lee in the office, and that kind of helped me ground the purpose. Not to get too philosophical, but it is important. And so, I just got to bring it all together. I'm all about technology. I think that's how we, deliver better and better care moving forward. Education is hugely important. Using technology to be better educators, but that's the fundamental mission. And I think the human connection is the most important and final pillar in the 3 things that I think define neurosurgery. And so, thank you for your attention. I'm not going to belabor that. Big shout out to my mentor. It was his birthday yesterday, so I thought we could FaceTime him later, but I don't think he'd like that. But anyway, Dr. Hadley is the one who recruited me here. He's been a huge advocate and mentor to me. I know that you guys have a long relationship with him as well. So wish him happy birthday for me. But anyway, I'm happy to take any questions. That's all I got. I know we probably ran over, but
How long have you been here?
I've been here for about 2.5 years.
His first weekend was when I came in.
Yeah. So I'm a scoliosis surgeon. That's my main focus. And if we have time, I'll tell you the story. So I was, about to take my first call, prepared, for everything. And then one of the resident trainees, Dr. Maybe you'll meet her at some point. Wonderful, wonderful resident. She'd be here, but she's on maternity leave right now. Was like skipping down the hallway. He was like, "Hey, Dr. Godzik, like I'm just going down to the ED to go see Christy," and she's like, "I think she has, AOD, which is again the acronym for this thing," and I was kind of like, "I'm gonna go to my office and probably go home." Like a resident trainee who thinks they have AOD, like you either do or don't have it. It's like saying like, "Oh, I think aliens have landed." Like they have or haven't. It's like a binary thing, and I was like, "Yeah." And then they texted the chief resident, so it's like upward. The chief resident calls me with a picture, and I'm like, oh, I'm like the car, ABS, like pulling over from the going that way towards home when I like did a UE, and I was like, I gotta go examine her again. Are you sure Christy's alive? And so yeah, it's I thought that's a funny story. I do that, and I tell the same story from the other side. To talk about the challenges in this very unique situation, and I make fun of Dr. Howell a lot about that, but it's a big team, so I'm not sure what the question was, to be honest with you, but here we are.
How long had you been here?
2 years. Any other questions from the audience?
Besides your mentor, what else drew you to UAB?
Oh, so I heard of UAB, I'm from California, and hate us all you want. We don't know about the rest of the country. But I knew about UAB because when I initially started being interested in neurosurgery, I was interested in spine, and then there's a lot of publications that came out of here, and so I recognized UAB. I didn't look here for residency because I didn't know about it at the time, and then when I came time to look for jobs, I naturally reached out to people that I knew that knew about UAB. And the reason I came was, multifaceted, but one was because, again, my focus of my practice is scoliosis and deformity, and there's not a lot of surgeons that do that in the tri-state area. So I take care of scoliosis from Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and parts of Tennessee and Georgia. So that's the business side of things. But the other one is I really like UAB as a really established history. Didn't have a lot of the stuff that I wanted to bring, so it was a lot of kind of growth opportunity. And I had never been to the South before. I've been to Texas, which my wife is from Texas, and she tells me that Texas is not the South, it's Texas. So I don't know. So I've been to Texas, but we came out here in the middle of, was that?
That's like Florida.
Is it the South? Yeah, Florida's Florida. I know that. And we came out here in the middle of COVID, in the middle of winter, stayed out by Ronar Park, went to a couple restaurants, met some people, and loved it. And so it's been awesome. People are great. Very beautiful city you guys have here. Great. That's right. And Jennifer was wonderful. No, but I mean, I think having even this group, the Leadership Council, having you guys show up on a weekday to listen to me, yabber on about robots or whatnot, I think speaks to what the city has to offer, and to show that there's people that are proud of it and want it to excel, and so I appreciate you very much for coming here and for letting us talk about these things, and yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate
We
it.
appreciate you having here, not you appreciating us.
So as for me, I look forward to contributing and giving back in any way that I can to help Dr. Godzik and UAB, especially the neurosurgery department, because ultimately what matters is patient outcomes and their well-being. But if you would like to know more about my experiences in my very, very long stint at UAB's Neuro ICU, I will have that playlist linked at the end of this video. And with that, I will see you all very soon.
you.